I want to know how refrigerators work, but I don't, so I'm going to find out. Let's go. We should probably think of some quick questions before we start so we have a little bit more of a focus about how we're going to go about finding out this information. So let's see. How do refrigerators work? More specifically, how does an engine or motor make things cold? I can't think of anything else, but we can come back to this. How do refrigerators work? All right, how the system works. This is saying that you need to pressurize the refrigerant. Okay, so it looks like you've got two chambers inside the refrigerator. You've got your like compressed chamber, and you've got your chamber where all of the compressed refrigerant liquid that turned into a gas gets returned back into a refrigerant. So you've got these two chambers right here, this picture. So the basic principle of how a refrigerator works is evaporation. Like if you've ever been outside running around and getting sweaty and then stood in a cool breeze while all that sweat is on your skin, you know this principle. Like the evaporation cools things off. When water evaporates, the surrounding area gets cooled off. So refrigerators do this. I'm not sure exactly. It's talking about using refrigerant as a way to do this because it doesn't say exactly how though. Like, does refrigerant get like a lot cooler than other materials when it evaporates? I'm assuming it must, because there's no way that just your body or like just the process of liquid evaporating is going to cool things down to like 32 degrees. So we need to find out what refrigerant is and like how it works, because that is going to be a big part of this. What is refrigerant and how does it work? So the other thing you can see in this picture is that there is a compressor that is compressing the gas. So the compressor pushes all this gas into this tube and compresses it, and while the compressor is running it gets warm, so it's pressurizing this tank and also warming it up. And then when it's time for the gas to be when it's time for the refrigerant to be turned into a gas, it goes over here, it gets turned into a gas. Wait, what? This doesn't make any sense. So we've got a little distilling thing here, and we've got a line. Is the liquid running down here and then up through here? And then the gas is flowing. Okay, yeah, too early, my brain's not working. The refrigerant is pressurized here, is pushed down here through the compressor. The compressor air flow is going this way, so the pressure is going this way, following this tube down into the tank where it's pressurized and warmed up. Then it goes down here, flows into here, and then I'm assuming this little coily thing, wiggle, 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 is where the evaporation process is going to happen. And then all of the gas is stored here, and then it's showing that there's liquid here, which is a little bit confusing. I think this liquid is just there for demonstration purposes. I think it's just showing that this liquid came from here. So all of gas is stored here, the evaporated liquid, which then flows up this tube, and then the compressor can then pump it back over here where it's compressed and turns back into a liquid. But I want to know how it's that simple. Okay, so we have a few more specific pieces of this puzzle. So we've got, here's the compressor that we were talking about. So this compressor pumps thing into this one over here, the evaporator, which you can see all of this stuff. I'm not sure if this stuff is evaporating as it goes through these like kind of twists and turns, or if it says this is inside the refrigerator. Is it? I'm assuming that the refrigerant isn't something that you would want in your food or on your food. So this is probably like the liquid is evaporating inside of here as it kind of flows up, and then all the gases flow up and then they flow into this thing, which is on the back. So this is inside, this is really cold. This is inside the refrigerator making everything cold, and then this is on the outside, and this is where all of the coolant, the refrigerant, turns back into liquid and then flows back here. And this piece is what is spraying. So this little capillary tube is spraying all the liquid into this evaporator so that it can be kind of like a mist. It's not just going to evaporate from a liquid, it's evaporating from like a mist or like a very fine layer of refrigerant. Now, we need to know what the heck refrigerant is, because water is not going to do this. If you just pump water into a refrigerator, it's not going to cool it down. So why is refrigerant special? Let's find out. What is refrigerant and why is it special? Oh my goodness. My brain is not working. I've read this sentence like 6 times and I can't, it's not parsing. This is saying a lot of things that you would probably assume that a refrigerant would need. Like it needs to have a high evaporative pressure. The pressure needs to be, I've read this sentence so many times and I still can't understand what it means because my brain is not working. We'll skip it for now. So it should be able to absorb a lot of heat with just a small amount. It should have a higher critical temperature. which means it should be able to be condensed and liquefied at just like room temperature. It should have a low condensing pressure, so if you just put a very small amount of pressure on it, it will condense into a liquid. It has to be low freezing temperature. It can't just freeze at 32. It needs to freeze below that. Low specific volume of gaseous refrigerant, high density, solubility in refrigeration oil. So a lot of like basic things that you would like expect a refrigerant to have, but it doesn't really say like, does it cool off more than just water? Like I want to know, like, if all of these characteristics were applied to water, would it still cool off a refrigerator the same way if it was piped into the system? I'm assuming water wouldn't work with the system because it doesn't do things like compress under the same temperature. It doesn't evaporate as quickly at room temperature. So maybe it doesn't need to be special. Maybe all of those characteristics, that it evaporates more quickly and then it can be condensed more. So it's like, I'm confused. I feel like the whole process would need to have some kind of special characteristic to cool it down to such a low temperature. Or is it that just the process of evaporation inside the refrigerator, where it's like the temperature inside is constantly getting like very marginally cooler? Is that what makes it so cold? Is it possible to cool something down so much lower than ambient room temperature just by like degrees, just by steadily decreasing the temperature, even if the liquid that is decreasing the temperature isn't necessarily getting colder? Warping my brain a little bit. Let's look into it a little more. This article is talking about ACs, but I'm pretty sure the principles should be the same. Let's just try a different approach. Could you cool a refrigerator down with water as the refrigerant? This person tried to make their own refrigeration unit using water, it looks like. I mean, I don't want to know if it will freeze things. I just want to know if it will like cool it down to, like, would water used in this system cool things down to sub-ambient temperatures? Like your generic, I don't know what temperatures refrigerators usually run at, but I'm assuming it's like 20 degrees colder than outside or something. I don't know. So would water do that, or is there something special about the refrigerant? Because I know that refrigerants need to not freeze, and they need to do it quickly and efficiently, but if you had like infinite energy, or you did not care about the energy, would it still work to just use water? Like, what is so special about the refrigerants? I'm not going to be able to answer my question today, but that's okay. So to recap, refrigerators work by compressing the refrigerant into a tank. When they compress the liquid into a tank, it warms it up, which I think helps with the evaporation process. I'm not 100% about that. That refrigerant that is compressed gets piped through into the spritzer. I don't remember what it's called. And then that spritzes it up into the evaporator. And then the evaporator will let the refrigerant evaporate, which creates a cooling effect. That evaporator is inside of the refrigerator, where all of the cooling is kind of like stored up and contained inside of the refrigerator, and it gets cooler and cooler. And then the refrigerant is then piped onto the back of the refrigerator, where there's that swooshy thing that condenses the liquid back into a liquid. It takes it from a gas, puts it back into a liquid, and then it's routed back into the compressor, which starts the process all over again. And that's how refrigerators work.